Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Rob Johnson, president of Rob Johnson Communications.
And I'm Eileen, Rochford, CEO of the Harbinger Group, a marketing and strategy firm. One of our big goals here on Can You Hear Me is to make an effort to share the best advice for professionals looking to advance in their careers and to make you all consider important factors that you may not have considered. And today is another one of those important moments, as we want to be able to give advice to new grads, especially those who are beginning their careers in marketing.
Yes, it's a very dicey time for a lot of people. The nerves are flowing this time. Some people already have jobs. Some people are looking for them. We feel so strongly about this because no matter how mature and wise we are, wink, wink, we remember what it was like to start out and how vital it is that you get essential perspectives from various different sources. So I was in the job market for the first time 30 something years ago. and I was doing something unusual, which was TV. It was kind of the road less traveled. But I realized how important it was to have people giving me advice or sending me on a path or whatever it may be. Doing it alone is tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just give a shout out to some people who didn't even know my name and were willing to give me a crack at my first job. One in particular, Andy Eklund at the time, what was Golan Harris, that is now Golan. But literally never met me before, brought me in for an interview, and it was my first crack. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with networking that I'd done up to that moment to lead me to Golan, but also a lot of jobs that I'd had as an undergrad, particularly in the summers in between. So we're not talking about how to land the job today. We're talking about how to succeed once you have it. Right, Rob?
Exactly. And I want to give one shout out to a woman who at KALB TV in Alexandria, Louisiana, she was the assistant news director at the time. Her name's Ann LaRue, and she saw my resume tape. It was awful. She let me, I was going to drive like 5 hours to meet her, even though I had no reason to be there. And she's like, there's something about you. I'm going to give you a shot. And I was like, and the rest was history. So yeah. I have to give a shout out to her.
Same with Andy, Eklund. I was kind of a spaz. I don't know. And he just was like super nice about it. So I would never have gotten a job or, advanced in my career in PR without him. That's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. It is with this in mind, because we are focusing on once you have the job, that we invite to our show today someone who is on the Harbinger Group's team. She's been with us, her name is Avery Resendiz, and she's been with us, Avery, I think 2 years. Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's amazing. Started as an intern, a total go-get-em intern who knocked our socks off so much that we convinced her to work for us even through her senior year in college, which might have been torture, but I think it was worth it. And that now has been here in June, in late June, she'll have been full-time with us as, fully formed full-time employee. And I think you're the perfect person because you have done so well in your first year as a full-time employee, but you're the perfect person to talk about your experiences. So we welcome you and thank you for being with us here today. Welcome, Avery.
I'm excited. Thank you.
So Avery, is this your first time on Can You Hear Me? I don't think it is.
It's not.
No.
Right. You're a veteran at this.
Also a veteran podcaster.
You've been helping us out. Okay, before we get into it, real quickly, just give us your background, where you went to school. We know where you interned. Wink, wink. But give us a little background on that.
Yeah, so I went to Columbia in Chicago, and I studied public relations and broadcast journalism there.
Excellent. So I know you've come up with some really good ideas here, and we want to dive into them right now. Really common sense tips that are simple and, most importantly, they're actionable. So let's start with the communication piece. Even though you may be an intern or an entry-level employee, you feel like this is really important when it comes to just the communication piece. Talk about that. So you have the job, you're new, you're looking around, you're doing a lot of listening, but communication is key.
Oh, definitely. So I just want to start out by saying that I know there can be a lot of anxiety coming into a company, a new company, full time. So I had this even coming in as an intern at the Harbinger Group. I was like, do I know enough to be here? So I just think it's important, new grads, to know that no one expects you to be an expert. Prior to landing this job, you probably have only been an intern, which these programs last only about 12 weeks. So it's impossible to learn everything that you need to know prior to starting this job within that time frame. But what your boss does expect you to do is show initiative in learning and that you're dedicated to your professional development. And I think the best way to do this is through open communication. So you should speak up, communicate that you want to try a project, that you're interested in learning a topic. And I think one way I did this is also just by speaking to my colleagues. Most of them have been in the industry for over a decade. So I would ask them questions or I'd ask them to show me how to do something. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is just speaking up about what you want to learn because it's only going to open new opportunities for you.
That's fantastic advice. Really, really good. Ask for what you need, ask for what you want. That's one of the things we say around here a lot. So that's great.
Can I make an observation? Your 12-week internship, let's see, if you've been there almost 2 years now, it's lasted like 116 weeks. 12 weeks. Look at that. Look how that worked out. You were so good. You had so much to offer. Look where it's landed you. So congrats.
That's right. Yeah, we couldn't let her go back to just being a full-time student. We were like, no that's not possible.
I'm glad because I learned so much and I couldn't have done that within that short time frame. So I'm thankful for the length that I was able to be here for as an intern.
Wonderful. Good to know. Appreciate that. So, you've just closed or about to in a couple months, your first year as a, let's say entry level, your first year really is your entry into the workforce. So I guess, you haven't finished that yet. So you're an entry level employee. How do you personally see that you've been able to take initiative and demonstrate, maybe a little bit of leadership skills?
Yeah, so I think that the main thing here is just because you're in an entry-level position does not mean you can't lead your team and improve operational processes. I think that your thoughts hold as much value as anyone else's on the team. So it's important to not be afraid to speak up and say, hey, I don't think this process is working. Here's why, and here's how we can improve it. So always remember that as much as you still have to learn from your team, you also have ideas and knowledge to offer them. And then another thing I think is as a new grad, you might be like, oh my gosh, I need this deliverable from my boss, but they're super busy and I shouldn't bother them, but that's not true at all. One way that I do this is I know that my managers have a larger workload than I do, so I'm not afraid to kind of send a list of things that I need from everybody in the morning in order to move my workload forward. And I feel like this is appreciated more than anything. You're not stepping on anyone's toes. Most likely they just have forgotten about it because they have a few more things to do than you do. So I think that if you continue to kind of wait for them and you can't move forward, you're not helping your company and you're kind of failing your team at that point. And it's impressive, I think, that you would feel comfortable enough to kind of keep your team on track and that you're a team player because we're all here to help one another out and we all have a role. So we should be holding one another accountable. And then one last thing that I just want to mention is being a leader isn't also just about like providing guidance to your team members. One way you can do it is by just stepping up and taking action. There's always going to be these daunting tasks that no one wants to do because they're either time consuming or just seem hard in the moment. So I can't stress enough that in your first few years to just take initiative and volunteer to do those. You're showing that you're a team player and your first priority when you're entering a company is to learn. And by doing those hard things, you're learning and you're showing that you want to be there and that you want to contribute to your organization's success. And I think it's also important to say that like everybody starts somewhere. So while you might anticipate doing these super important hard projects, which you're going to be on, there are those smaller components that someone has to do. So I would just say take initiative, ask to do it, and say yes with enthusiasm.
I love that. And you're echoing a lot of the things that we heard from very seasoned PR legend Ron Culp on a few shows back, where he was giving advice as well and observations, and that volunteer to do the hard things and to take on more. He echoes that absolutely. So really good advice. It's excellent.
I know we're audio only here, but I wish everybody could see the Eileen's box that she's in on Zoom here, because Avery's saying all these things and Eileen is just like giddy with like, oh, it's working. This is all this advice. Everything is just working great. And I can just see the pride that you have.
So
just
true.
Listening. No, it's true. I mean, she's sitting there saying all these things. Avery's spot on. We don't have, how old are you now, Avery?
I'm 22.
Yeah, you're 22. How many 22-year-olds do we have on the show? Not many. I think Avery, you might be it, but there's a reason you're on. And Eileen is just like, this is
Gaga over it. Yes. I will just say that there's a reason we hired you, because you had so much of this innately, or you were taught it by other people. Who knows? Past educators, your parents. For this,
I hope we can, because I know we do video component for our promotions on the Can You Hear Me LinkedIn page.
Right.
I hope we can just show a little bit of that, just because it just speaks volumes and it's just awesome.
It is awesome. Avery is awesome. That's the truth.
So Avery, the next one here is a big one, because I know people in general, especially newer employees, can be hypersensitive to constructive criticism, or say having a boss, somebody over you, edit your work. But I know how I feel about it. I know how Eileen feels about it. But you think this is a good thing. It's not something you should take personally and say, "Oh, I'm not good at what I do." Why is that so important in your eyes?
Yeah, so I just can't stress this enough to change your mindset completely about constructive feedback as being bad. You're so new to this industry and the company. There's so many different factors you need to learn about not only your organization, but the clients you work with. Whether it's social and you're learning their brand voice, or just overall preferences for how you complete your work. So you're not going to be perfect at writing a blog or a press release. There's so much you have to learn about the company and the organization, and that takes time. And you need to take that feedback as an opportunity to grow. So as someone who has worked at the Harbinger group for almost 2 years, I've seen, such improvement in myself and my skills. I used to be so hard on myself when I'd receive feedback and see those edits. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not good at this. Like, maybe I'm not a good writer. Why did everyone tell me I was? But I changed how I looked at it. So if I no longer am receiving feedback, I can't get better or excel at what I'm doing. And over time, I've received fewer and fewer edits. So what that means to me is that I've learned something. And I think that the biggest thing is also, it's not personal. My colleagues who have been in the industry for 20 plus years are still critiquing each other and giving feedback. So, which means you're going to learn as you go, because they still are. And I just think that you really need to take in the comments that are being told to you, and you just need to, when you continue to complete this similar work, to implement them. And you're going to see big progress, and your confidence is going to go way up as well. Yeah. So just remember, you're learning. This feedback is ways for you to learn better and to just do your work better. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Do we ever stop learning is the question. No,
well, I was getting ready to say, shouldn't. Avery, your boss here is a lifelong learner. I mean, if there's one thing that I've learned just from spending a lot of time with her is there's real value in that. So it's not that I wasn't, but being around Eileen has reminded me of that. So I'm glad that you're saying, listen, whether you're 22 or whether you're 52 or whether you're 82, if you're never done learning, you shouldn't be.
Yeah. And seeking people who can give you new perspectives, insights about your work, your thought processes. That just makes you a better professional too. I totally echo everything you're saying and love that mindset. It's great advice for anyone at any age, frankly. Yeah. The critique of your work, whether it's written work, visual elements, whatever the case may be, as a marketing professional, every single piece of feedback you get is an opportunity to grow. So really great advice. Thanks, Avery.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about communicating internally. So you've had to also master in your first year being a full-time employee. You've also been faced with the internal communications challenge and knowing your audiences as well. So we can talk about them either collectively or as two separate things, totally up to you. But I'd really like to hear about how you approached learning or kind of getting your arms around internal communications, communicating with your team to get work done and all of that good stuff. Tell us about it.
So I think there's 3 main points that come to my mind when you're talking about knowing who you're talking to. So the first is being just understanding your team members and your clients. What I mean by this is you need to learn their strengths, their weaknesses, and their preferences. This is only going to help you tailor your communication and work style better. And then the second is knowing how to communicate effectively. So one thing is everyone has different learning styles. So some might need a visual representation. Others might do better with verbal explanations. So just recognizing what your clients and your team members' strengths are in this aspect is only going to make your work days go smoother, and it's going to save you time than having to go back and re-explain things. If I already know, hey, Eileen does better when I meet with her over Google and understanding what I'm saying, I'm just going to automatically do that. Why would I waste time and try to communicate via email? So I think going into the third point is just be willing to try different communication channels. So if a client or team member is confused, like I said, be willing to be flexible, hop on that quick phone call, hop on that Google Meet, or go ahead and send an email with new resources and additional information. Because by understanding your clients and these team members and being able to adapt to this communication style, you're only going to create a more efficient workplace and a productive environment for all of you.
Yeah, really smart. The thing that's standing out to me is particularly as a new person in the workplace, your team, especially if you're servicing clients or even internal clients in a corporate position, your team isn't necessarily going to give you all those watch outs, all those insights about how each individual you may interact with, rather how they learn, how they work best, together, etc. So it sounded to me like you may have done a bit of testing to figure out how to do that well. And you also referenced earlier something that I know you deduced on your own about me, which is you create short lists for me that are links to the Asana projects or tasks, whatever the case may be, that you need me to weigh in on in order to advance work. And you'll give me that lowdown, rundown, whatever, every morning, or not every, but frequently when I need it. And that way, because if it's put in front of me and I know it's urgent, time sensitive, I get it done. But if it's all scattered and things aren't, really kind of put in front of my face in this organized manner, you're not going to get the action as quickly as you would if you did in this way. And you figured that out all on your own. So that was genius. And it works great.
and the other part of it is like, it's like an executive memo, right? Like you could sit here and share everything you know with your boss, or you could sit there and bullet point or make a short list, as Eileen was saying, with all the actionable items and the links and everything else, because bosses don't want to read a 4-page memo. They want to read something quick that they can process, that they can take action on if needed.
Right. Yeah. That's really smart.
That is very, very smart. So you've talked about a lot of things already, Avery, that, where you show your bosses and your colleagues that you're smart, you're capable, you're a team player, all those sorts of things. But sometimes people forget to ask for help. I know it sounds simple, but you're up against a deadline, project. You don't want to look like you're incapable, whatever the case may be. But asking for help is vital in this environment. Why do you think so?
Yeah. So first off, asking questions does not mean you're not smart or capable. So totally get that notion out of your head. It's incredibly important because if you have a lack of understanding of how to do something, your work is going to be delivered with mistake. And then you're going to have to redo it. And no one wants to work with a team member who consistently turns in this sloppy work and who is wasting time where they could be working on other projects and getting it done. So my advice is to always read the directions of whatever task that you're given and then ask questions. If you have even a simple, small lack of understanding on one tiny detail, that detail is still as important as the entire project. So I've always just asked my team members, hey, can you show me how to do this? I'm not sure. This is the first time I'm completing this. And I've never had anybody be mad at me for that. If anything, they appreciated it. And I just think you need to recognize you're all on the same side to help one another. While your main goal is to learn, their goal is to teach you how to do something because they've been doing this for, like we said, probably over a decade. So definitely ask for that tutorial. And then also asking for help doesn't mean just asking how to do something. I think it's also important that when you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed with your workload, that you tell your boss because they can't read your mind. They don't know how you're feeling. And this also goes hand in hand with if you're not feeling good and you're frustrated and you have a lot to do, you're going to try to quickly complete that work. It's not going to be good. And you're probably not going to meet deadlines. So I think that it's just important to let them know how you're feeling. They're going to help make an actionable plan for you to get that done and help you out. So just, again, there's no way of knowing how you feel unless you communicate. And overall, no one's going to be upset with you. You need to make the deadlines because if not, you're hurting yourself and the organization. Everyone's there to support you. And I think one last thing, you're all working towards the same goal. So as much as if you're feeling frustrated and they're going to help you complete your work or make a plan for you, when another team member kind of comes to you and talks to you about it, about them being frustrated in the future, I think it's also important that you reciprocate that. And if you have extra time the next day, say, hey, I can help you with that. I can finish that because 9 out of 10 times, either in the future or past times, they probably helped you. So I just want to say again, you're working towards the same goal. Help one another out.
Nice. Fantastic. Okay. We have one more thing to cover and, it's it's not easy, but it's important. And I think we can do it quickly. And that is that I think it's really important for people to remember who are young and entering the workforce this year, how critical it is for firm leaders like myself, people who are, running small businesses whose really our reputation is online every day and it's critical, to our sustained success. So we want our people to be detail oriented and double and triple check everything that they do for accuracy and to ensure that things are the best products every time. How do you do that? Talk about how you yourself have learned and how you utilize different tools or tricks, tips to check everything for total accuracy.
Yeah. So one thing is stop rushing your work. Of course, everyone would appreciate receiving it quickly, but they want it to be good. Another way is I'll kind of just read through all the directions, think if I have any initial questions, go back, ask, then start my project. And I do it in sections. So say there's 3 parts to it. I'll do the first part, and then say the next day I have to do the second part. I'm going to go back and reread those directions because it's so easy for that to slip your mind when you're working in multiple days. So I think that's important. And then also, I just think that you need to ask the questions. That's the one thing I know we talked about. You might not feel smart or capable in that moment, but I think that's the smartest thing you can do. You're saving time. You're only hurting yourself and your agency's credibility. And you're not going to excel in your career if you're not asking questions, you're not learning, and you're not completing this work good. Because I think as harsh as it might sound, while you're lucky to be in your position, there's 30 other people who would kill to be there. And what kind of makes you think that if you're not doing a good job, you're not understanding, you're not turning in correct work, why would they not go to those 30 other people who are willing to stop, read the directions, work through it, ask those questions, and then turn in an amazing final product that doesn't need those crazy corrections? So yeah.
Fantastic. You could be someone who's been working for 20 years giving this advice. It's so accurate.
We did 2 episodes with Ron Culp. Should we do 2 with Avery? No. But honestly, all of this advice is so good. And we're talking today about people that are newer in their careers like yourself. But it really does, as Eileen pointed out earlier, it really does relate to everybody, but especially the younger workers who are trying to develop a cadence and develop their reputation within their firm and that sort of thing. So bravo.
Yep. If folks who listen to this who are new in their marketing careers just focus in this next year on the things that Avery shared, I think we have real confidence that they will do very, very well in their jobs. So thanks for being willing to share, Avery. It's really, it's helpful and it's very selfless. So we appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And new grads, good luck.
Absolutely.
Yay. Connect with Avery on LinkedIn, new grads. She's a great resource.
It's that time. It's that time of year, new grads. Yeah. So that's going to do it for another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Rob Johnson. If you'd like to comment on the podcast or suggest a topic, please contact us at our new Can You Hear Me podcast page on LinkedIn.
And I'm Eileen Rochford, and we thank you all for listening. If you liked our show, please consider giving us a review on any of the platforms where you can find Can You Hear Me, particularly Apple and Spotify. Your reviews will help other potential listeners to find us, and we appreciate it so much. Thanks, everyone.